Welcome back to the Built on Air podcast. We are in episode 7 of season 19. Good to be back with you. We've got myself, Dan, Camille, and Ali with us, and special guest, Andy. Welcome back, Andy.
Hey, great to be here. Happy to be back.
Good to have you. We were talking earlier. It's been a few years, but we'll get an update on Andy and what he's been up to since that time and more later on in the show. So I'll walk us through what we're going to be talking about. Let me get rid of our headers here so you can see us all. Okay, we always start with our Around the Bases and keep you up to date on all the news and updates and everything going on in the different communities around Airtable. Then a quick highlight of our sponsor, BuiltOnAir and BuiltOnAir backups. And then we'll get an update on Andy and his business, Data Fetcher. And then we'll have Camille walk us through a proof of concept of an adventure game that she built entirely in Airtable. And then shout out to join our community. And then finally, Ali's going to walk us through some tips and tricks around doing pseudo VLOOKUPs in Airtable. So with that update, so let's do a quick check. I wanted to see, sometimes they release new features Tuesday morning, so nothing new. I think all of these we talked about last week, so nothing new, at least in the Airtable page, but there are a few things that people found in the different communities, so we'll highlight those in a second. Okay, first one, this is coming from Make. Make announced some new modules, updates to a few things, including Airtable. They now have upsert records for bulk, create, delete. Basically, they now have bulk support, I was actually surprised. I thought that they had this previously, but apparently they did not have bulk support until now for Airtable.
Interesting.
Yeah, I guess just the way that Make handles arrays, I always was feeding it one record at a time inside like a loop or something, but that's not always what you want. It's also like not the most efficient. So glad that you could start doing stuff in bulk.
Yeah, that'll save on tasks or whatever as well.
Right.
Yep. So that's a good update for Make. Okay, here's one from Troy. Anti-phishing measures for unfamiliar links. I don't know if this is new. I feel like I've maybe seen this in the past. Well, it'll ask you, are you sure you want to leave Airtable?
Do you know if it's opt-in, opt-out, or does these always show? Because I always these always seem a little bit heavy-handed, right? When I do this all the time, but
yeah,
it's definitely a sign that it's an enterprise company now when you've got these pop-ups for clicking on any URL.
Yeah.
It seems to be basically any URL it's happening to me more and more. I don't know if it's been a slow rollout, but I'm now seeing it across like all my bases and workspaces.
And this is separate from in interfaces. You can have a button that has a confirmation window. This is separate from that?
I think so. This is just any link field that you click on. I wonder if it's a shared view, because that's the big risk. I would think if you were logged into Airtable and it's a base that you own, this would get pretty annoying.
It does, and it's happening in bases I own.
Really?
Like I create a formula field with a URL to like a pre-filled form, for example, like in fill out, and then I click the link to test it, and I get this pop-up.
Yeah.
What about if you paste in a URL, like you've literally just entered the URL and then you clicked on it, would it do that?
I haven't actually tried it with like a pasted URL. It's all been formulas for me, but I would assume that it would probably do the same thing.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So anyways, I think we actually highlighted a month or two ago of a phishing attack where somebody would send somebody to a shared Airtable link, made it look like OneDrive, I think, and then it had links to other places. So this might be a direct response to that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on. So here's a real life example using AI to create apps. So somebody built, I don't know what a 75 hard tracker is, but that worked out in AI. So I've actually been using the new AI builder, the co-builder is what they call it. It's actually pretty good. It gives you a good start to a new base. Gives you something to use. So
I've not used it, but from what everyone says, it's great as the first pass, and then it'd be nice to be able to make tweaks to it, right?
Right.
Maybe that's coming next, but
yeah,
seems like pretty good, pretty solid implementation.
Yep. Yeah, that definitely is needed. All right, here from Ben. He says, I have a pretty dashboard and an ugly dashboard. Guess which one I like more? I'm trying to figure this out. I can't tell if he's saying he still likes the old school. So here's, I assume, the pretty dashboard, and here's the ugly dashboard. So I don't know if he's trying to like make it sound like he still likes the old one, or if he's just making it obvious that you can make pretty dashboards and interfaces.
But that's not even the old, that's just a grid.
Right.
So I don't know, maybe Ben is just saying he gets more actionable info out of this view. I would have to know more about the use case to see like how meaningful these individual data points are. And sometimes, a chart looks nice, but it doesn't really tell me anything. Mm-hmm. So that I can see and understand.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ben, let us know what you're thinking, which one you like more. I'm guessing the reason he posted this is that he actually still likes this view more than the new pretty interface, but I'm not sure. Maybe he still does like this one.
Yeah, I like the ability to, if you enable show underlying records for a chart or for a number field, I like having like a quick filter with a nice little visual component of it of, there are 4 tasks that are in progress or something. You click that and you see which 4 tasks meet that criteria. But as a whole, yeah, I personally don't use dashboards a whole lot.
Yeah. All right. Let us know, Ben. Okay, here's another one. Kind of frustrating. Airtable randomly wiping 50 hours of work is a good omen to start the week. The pain is never ending. I don't know that I've seen it completely just wipe your data without you doing something. So I'm not sure what's going on here.
Yeah, I'm wondering what went wrong here.
Yeah.
Me too.
Hopefully he was able to recover it.
Yeah.
Maybe if he accidentally deleted the base or something, but you can reach out to them and they'll restore it.
Or an automation gone crazy, right? But
yeah, that's true.
It's been remarkably stable for me. Like it gets slow sometimes, but it never just loses stuff, which a lot of tools do.
Yeah, maybe data fetcher went wild and overrode all the data.
No.
Never happens. All right, here's a couple of new products out on the market. This one's shareables.ai. It's kind of interesting. Let's take a look at that one. So it allows you to embed data from Airtable into your website. So it's kind of like a UI builder. And I wonder if we actually highlighted a very similar one to this not too long ago under a different name. I'm wondering if this is the rebrand of that. I thought it was a different name. We'll have to do a comparison because there was a very similar product to this launched a month or so ago. But anyways, yeah, if you want a better display of your data into your website or something, this is a way to just kind of generate a shareable view that's more advanced than what Airtable provides. Okay, next one. If I believe this is on iOS only, if you use the Alfred to do quick lookups, here is Martin giving away a way to basically search for any base inside of the Alfred search and be able to jump directly to it. So if you like shortcuts inside of your Mac, then you could check this out and install it for free.
Yep. Every Mac I own has Alfred installed on it. I can't recommend it enough.
Okay, here's a shortcut for you. Okay, next one. Here's another one. This one actually looks pretty cool. It's called Power Save. I think we might have highlighted this in the past, but it looks like it's updated. So save information ASAP as you browse with AI Assistant. So I believe it's a Chrome extension. And it kind of allows you to, so Airtable has its own Chrome extension to create new records. This one is a bit more advanced. It has more functionality. I also believe you can update existing records through their extension as well. And so it allows you to, it's got some AI functionality built in, and you can just kind of highlight a section, and then it gives you this menu of where you want to add it to. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, you can just highlight different sections and say, put this into this field, put it into that field, and then submit. That's pretty cool. It also has multiple records at once, and then even some selection, autofill precision. So that's pretty cool. I might check this one out. That could come in handy if you're doing a lot of data collection on the web, inserting into Airtable.
Yeah, that's really cool. It'd be nice if you could automate it afterwards, right? So you could say, go and do this for like these 20 URLs using the same selectors that I just did. Maybe it does some of that already.
Yeah, I think this one's starting more as a manual. There are some other products that do more of that, but this one might evolve into that. So that's pretty cool. And it looks like it's Airtable specific. So just tailored to Airtable. Very cool. All right. Regular update. If you're experiencing failed automation scripts, you're not alone. Others, Meredith, Scott, have been experiencing it last couple of weeks. So that may be a system-wide issue, or it might be specific to your script if something's going on there. Okay, next one. If you're looking for more interviews with Howie, CEO of Airtable, here's a new one from Village Global. We'll put a link to it in our show notes. So yeah, see what he's talking about. He's been kind of on the speaking circuit lately, talking about the new AI functionality. So there's another interview. Okay, here's one from friend of the show, Julian, coming from Airtable Forums, Table Forums, asking about, so he's using an AI automation task or update, and he's asking it to basically separate out data into 3 columns and then returns that, and then wants to use a repeating group on the output from the AI step, and asking if that's possible. And Scott tells them that there's only certain things that can be an input to this. And then there's actually one more roll-up fields as well can be an input. So AI cannot be inputted into a repeating, even though you can tell AI to return like an array or a list of items. So I've actually played with this. So what you have to do is you can tell the AI script to, or the input to have the output be a JSON array. And then what you have to do is with one line of a script, you can convert that array into an object output. And then I believe that can then go into a repeating group.
Yeah, that would be what I do. You could just convert it with a script step.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so maybe we'll do that in a future show and share the line of code you need. It's a very simple, you just have to parse the string into a JSON object and then do an output.set. So it's pretty simple. All right, one more also from Table Forums. Okay, we're gonna see if ChatGPT gave a good answer. So I have a base tracking training for various tools in the makerspace where each record represents a user, and there are 4 fields for each training date given by expiration status. The status is a formula field that returns valid or expired based on comparing the expiration field to today. Tracking 17 trainings, that means I'm calling today 17 times on this table. Would I be better off just creating one today field and then referencing that field in the status formulas? So GPT says, yes, it would be more efficient to create a single today field than contains the result of today and then referencing that field in your status formula. It would reduce the number of times today is calculated, especially with 17 trainings, and then gives kind of the formula to reference that field instead of calling today. What do you think? Good answer from ChatGPT?
I would agree. I do that kind of, I mean, I don't know if I would, I think there's a better question around the data structure with 17 different formulas, but if that's the way you have to do it, then yeah, I would reference one formula field outputting today.
Yeah. Well, the question, let me see. Did they say they have like 17 columns or is that 17 rows?
Yeah, because I read that as 17 rows. And so I was like, well, that doesn't make any difference because you're still calculating it once per record.
I read it as 17 fields.
I agree if it's 17 fields. This is better.
Sure.
But then why is it all different fields? Shouldn't it be rows?
Although here it says that field in the status formulas. So that would apply.
Okay.
That makes me think he's got 17 different formulas, for one for each training, where I would really attack this at the root of the issue to me is that you need to change your structure up, which is you'd have probably a junction table or just a different table. You could really get that all into one column.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they had a separate table for the trainings. And then what you could do is you could have your today field at the parent, table, and then reference that into the child tables.
Yeah, because then it's only calculating once per parent and not once per training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, okay. Anyways, that was a fun exercise. See how ChatGPT, you got to be careful. It's an amazing tool, but it may give you some bad information. So always validate.
It's wild how much I've been seeing on Facebook where like someone in like the Airtable community group on Facebook asks a question and someone responds with an answer that's clearly just copied and pasted out of ChatGPT and it's just wrong. Like just completely false.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no.
Yeah, I wonder how I haven't looked at like Stack Overflow. I wonder how they're avoiding people just answering with AI.
Right.
Kind of interesting. All right, next one. If you are in the product operations world, it looks like Airtable is sponsoring a summit in San Francisco, Product-Led Alliance Product Operations Summit. So being sponsored by Airtable could be worth checking out in a couple of weeks in September. Okay, last one. This one, I'm going to walk you through it. I don't think audio is working, but Aaron, who used to work at Airtable, he was kind of like the community training, put out really great high quality videos. Then he moved to Webflow, but still a fan of Airtable. So there is a TikTok video that he found. And I'll walk you through kind of what it is. The audio isn't that important, but let's play this. So he's saying, this is a square. Where should it go? Which one should it go in? Go to there. So the girl is happy. She got it right. Also goes into the square. In rectangle.
I'm just trying to read what the other options are. I'm seeing.
Yeah, so we have project management. Should it go into the circle? And so the girl is saying it needs to go in the circle. So she's starting to get very frustrated that these are all going into the square. She wants it to go into the right spot. Now where does the triangle go? She wants it to go into the triangle. So the triangle is Salesforce. This one is recruitment going into Greenhouse, which is a tool. So basically saying all the things can go into Airtable, all your use cases and everything.
What a terrible children's toy. that doesn't teach anyone anything about shapes.
So the person was doing it the wrong way. Obviously, there was better fits, but it was basically showing that all of those shapes could still go into the square.
Mm-hmm. But if they made the square slightly smaller, that wouldn't be possible.
Yeah.
Relating it to Airtable, yes, a lot of times people put, in my opinion, way too much just in one Airtable. I'll say they'll take one base and have it be all things to all people, and that's how you kind of like lose control of a base really quickly. It's when you run into limits faster and harder to figure out what went wrong if something did go wrong because there's too much in it. So yeah.
Yep. Well, very good, Aaron. I thought that was good. He calls it his Mona Lisa, so he's proud of it. All right, that concludes our Around the Bases. You are now up to date on all the latest and greatest in the Airtable communities. Now, a shout out to BuiltOnAir. If you are running your business in Airtable, best practice is to make sure all your data is backed up outside of Airtable in addition to their internal backups. BuiltOnAir will help you back up your data to Google Drive, Box, or Dropbox. And we just released, it has not been announced yet, but last weekend we put out the latest feature, which is a restore functionality. So you can now restore your backups back into Airtable. So just kind of quickly showcase, you can pick your project that you've been backing up, and then it's one base at a time that you can back up. So you select the base from that project, and then you select the history that you want backed up based off of the timestamp. And then you can pick which tables, if you just want to do one or all of them. And then it will walk you through where you want to do it. So you can back up to a new base, or you can actually create or back up to an existing base. So if you want to back up, it'll create new tables, but you can back up to an existing base, and it'll walk you through all of that. So very excited for that. This was our top requested functionality and feature. There are some things that I wish Airtable could support better, but we found good workarounds and a healthy medium to overcome some of Airtable's API limitations to be able to do a full restore. So I'm excited for that. So check that out. That is currently available to all plans. We will in the next 30 to 60 days be kind of making it only available on certain plans. So if you want to check it out, you can do that now on BuiltOnAir.com. Okay, with that, another awesome app that is really popular, and Andy's been busy for many years working on this. So Andy, why don't you give us an update, who you are? It's been a few years since you were last on the show. Give us some context of your business and what you're doing, and then we'll jump into a demo of what you've got going on.
Yeah, sounds great. So as mentioned, I'm the founder of DataFetcher. DataFetcher was one of the first extensions on the Airtable marketplace. So back then they were apps, right? And now they're extensions, and it's just steadily grown over the last 3 years since I last spoke to you. We're now at 600 customers, a few thousand users. Got a small team of part-time contractors who help me out, but it's mainly still me just on the development and the support side. And we've got a new logo, most excitingly. We've got a bunch of new integrations. So we've got like 50 integrations now. And probably the most exciting and the most traction we're seeing is with OpenAI. So yeah, obviously it's kind of changed the game in the last couple of years, but we've really seen people using it as an escape hatch when they get to the limits of Airtable AI. So they've got some use case where they just want a bit more flexibility. They want to use their own OpenAI API key. They want to choose which model they use, or they want to create images or transcriptions, and that's when they come to Data Fetcher. But they're also using the thing that we first launched with, which is custom requests. So this is the UI that looks like Postman. And so people who are kind of technical, they can just about figure API docs out, or they're really technical, but they don't want to write a script and like host that somewhere or bother their development team. They're using the custom requests to connect to some API and then pull that data into Airtable. In terms of the APIs that people are using, there's like 2,000 to 3,000 different APIs. The long tail of APIs is way longer than I even expected when I launched the business. There's so many kind of legacy systems and old CRMs and things like that that are industry specific that people have to keep using because they're in that industry, but they kind of resent using them. They kind of want to pull that data into Airtable to build automations on top of it, to visualize it, to do all the wonderful things that you can do with Airtable. So that's when they come to Data Fetcher, and it's kind of an escape hatch so that they can get that data into Airtable. You can also send data from Airtable out to that other system, but most of the stuff we see is people pulling data in. So with that, I will get into the demo.
Yeah, let's check it out.
So we've got this
There we go.
Google Sheet here. So I'm keeping it pretty, you can see this, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. So I'm going to keep it fairly simple just for the like sake of the demo. But we've got a little Google Sheet here with some property names, locations, and then these URLs here, which are just little cover images for our properties. And so we're going to pull that data in to start off with. So everything in Data Fetcher is organized around requests. So we've got create request, and then we select the application that we want to pull that data in from. So I'll go Google Sheets and then save and continue. And then I'll select that spreadsheet. So I'll click here. So this is super similar to connecting a Google Sheet in Airtable itself. We can select that sheet and then the sheet, and then we'll run it. And this is the bit that people really love about Data Fetcher. So it's this field mapping. So basically taking the fields that we've got in that source sheet, and then we intelligently suggest how they should map to your Airtable. So you can see we've got a field called name, and we've found the existing name field in our properties table here. And we've suggested you map that to that. For the cover image, we noticed, or Data Fetcher noticed, that all those URLs ended in .jpeg. So rather than saying they're URLs, we suggested they come in as attachment fields. And then for location, we've just said single line text. But what I want to show you is how we can import those locations into a different table. So as well as the properties table, we've got a locations table. And so what we can do is change that field type here to link, and then select the table that we want and click save. And now when we save and run this, selected the wrong table, cursor demo. I'll start again. There we go. You can see it created those missing fields, and it's going to pull that data in. Oh, no. Let's start again and rush through it. Apologies.
No worries.
So we'll go new field, location, and select that locations table. And now it's going to pull it in and create those link fields here. So those locations have now been created in that locations table. And if we were to change one of these to Milan and run it again, it's going to keep all of those up to date. Now we could schedule this to run every hour, every day or whatever, and just do like a big bulk import of all of our properties. And then the next thing I want to show you is one of the AI features that we've added recently. So what we can do is actually send those cover images to OpenAI, so we can actually handle like the raw attachment files now. So if we click create request again, And for the application this time, we're going to select OpenAI. And we'd add our OpenAI key here, API key here. And then for the endpoint, we'll select create chat message completion. So this is just like when you're using ChatGPT, this is like the API equivalent to that. And then we've got this messages input here. So this basically lets us send like multiple different messages. So you could add extra context as like one message and then like a different message each time, depending on kind of what you want to do. But what we'll say is create a short property description. For this image. And then we can add references. So we can reference those cover images that we just saw in the table by adding this plus button on the right-hand side. So we'll click that, properties, cover image. We can see a little preview here, and then we'll click confirm, and then enter. And then when we run this, we're actually going to send that cover image, like attachment file, to the API. And we can see we get a message back, and we'll change that to description and run it again. And now it's going to iterate over each of the properties in that table. And we'll just hide that field that we didn't need. And we can see that each of the descriptions is getting created. So we could also kind of add the other things in our message, which I won't do now just to keep it short, but we could add the property name, the location to kind of make that description even more specific. And this is the thing I mentioned earlier. So people like to be able to select the actual model they want to use. Airtable AI can be a little bit kind of cryptic or a little bit of a black box to know what's actually going on in the background. And plus it can't handle the attachment fields in the same way that we can. And then you can set kind of the max tokens, temperature defines kind of how creative it gets, and all the other options that OpenAI kind of let you set through the API are available here in the integration. And something else we've added since we last spoke is triggers. So being able to trigger this to run basically as soon as there's a record available. So we can do that by making a new filtered view called needs description. Setting some filters on that. So we know that to be processed, we're going to need to set cover image is not empty, and that description is empty. So that's going to get rid of all the ones that we just saw. And if I create a new record, I should set up the trigger first, actually. So if we go here and we can scroll down to this trigger section here and hit record created, select that table as the properties table, and then that needs description, and then click save. If I now create a record with a cover image, so we're going to see that created in this view. In the next little while, we're going to see that that's triggered a run. And that's, just close that. That description's been added for us there. So that's triggers and OpenAI and uploading attachment fields. But the thing that I mentioned earlier is custom requests. So this was the original feature and what people kind of still love about Data Fetcher, and that's this UI. So this lets you basically set the URL, the method, all the stuff that the APIs kind of need you to send, as well as headers, different body types. So we've got like JSON, form data, and then different authorization types, all here, and then different pagination types as well. So when you're fetching different pages of data, there's a bunch of different ways that APIs ask you to do that, and they're all kind of handled automatically here. So if we selected page, you can set all the details here. But one thing we've added fairly recently is the ability to just paste in a curl command. So a lot of APIs just let you kind of copy a curl command in their API docs. And I'm going to copy this one for file.io. So this is similar to Dropbox. It's like an open source file hosting service. And we can copy that and just paste it straight in here. And you can see the method changed, the URL changed, and these headers were added automatically. And then the only other thing that we need to add is our API key as a bearer token. Short copy from here. And a file here. So we can replace this file here with the actual attachment file. Confirm. And you can see all the response fields that come back from file.io. And if we click this little sidebar here, you can even see a preview of that JSON comes back. And we can add each of those fields. So we can go deselect all. And by clicking on one here, we can just click on it and it will be toggled on or off. So maybe we'll just say backed up. And then we'll say run it.
A moment.
Sorry?
This happened the last time you demoed on the show where I was just like, this, I've got nothing. You've thought of everything again.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Yeah. So you can see it ran into an error when there was no file there was a file missing here. So it can only, obviously it's only gonna work if there's a file there. So we could use a filter view again, or we've got a little setting that says if one of these records causes an error, run the next request anyway. So
there you
go. Good God.
I've had a lot of feedback for the 4 years. So there we go. So that's custom requests, file uploads, the OpenAI integration, and the link fields. And then the last thing, which is actually super relevant to the invoice PDF parsing you mentioned earlier, Dan, is we've got the ability to extract fields from PDFs. So we can't quite do the array split thing that you mentioned, but you can see here I've got a couple of invoice PDFs. So each of these has an invoice number and a due date, but they're in totally different formats, right? They're not the same structure. And OpenAI is smart enough to basically pull out the different fields from those files. So we're using the assistant endpoint this time. And what we're going to say to it is extract the fields from this invoice PDF. And then we've got that reference to here, return JSON. And then we say, here's an example of the output. And when we run this, it's a little bit slower because it has to actually upload the file to OpenAI and create like an assistant thread and run. So it's a little bit slower, but it's super robust, like super reliable, and obviously really powerful because you can basically, pass that data from completely different invoices. So obviously if you had like a bunch of supplier invoices or something like that, you could just go down and pull out all that data. And that is pretty much it. Obviously happy to also answer any questions.
What's on the roadmap? What's next?
Yeah, so at the moment we're doing a bit of a repositioning. It feels like we've kind of got product market fit, and it's actually a case of communicating that better on the website. So we're doing a bunch of case studies with biggest kind of enterprise customers, and then actually just trying to communicate what we do. So when you land on the website, it's like, is this for me or not? Because we've kind of figured out that our happiest customers love the custom request stuff, and all of our marketing is actually about all of our other stuff. So it's the custom request and the AI stuff that we really need to promote. So in terms of like the general business, that's actually what we're focusing on. And then it's just a bunch of little UX improvements. So there's stuff like debugging at the moment is a bit limited. So for example, like when something errors out or when you got an email from us saying that your request failed, it'd be nice to go back into that run history that we've got here and just be able to like copy out a curl command and try and run that and basically answer like, was this a data fetcher issue? Was this an Airtable issue? Or was this a problem with the actual API itself, like when it ran? And what exact data did I send to it for that error to happen? So that's the focus at the moment. It's just kind of troubleshooting stuff like that, as well as maybe a couple of new integrations as well, possibly a Notion and Anthropic as well, so people can use Claude as well as OpenAI.
Very cool. But as far as you still plan to stay like focused within Airtable, or have you considered supporting others?
Yeah, still focused on Airtable. I did look at doing a Monday app a couple of years ago, and it was so painful that I came crawling back to Airtable. Also looked at Smart Suite, but I've kind of realized it's better to be a big fish in a small pond, and actually the quality of product you can build and the reason that I can compete with Zapier and stuff like that as like a small business is because I'm just staying like narrowly focused, both like in the product sense and on the marketing side of things. Like I can afford to make YouTube videos about super niche kind of use cases in a way that maybe some of the bigger companies don't bother, because they're not like, they don't care enough about each of those individual use cases. So at the moment, just keeping it kind of laser focused on Airtable.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's smart. Awesome. This is, I mean, Andy is humble, but this is by far like the most popular extension. I'm guessing, I obviously don't have access to the data, but popular extension in the marketplace, other than maybe the simple ones that Airtable provides, but Page Designer maybe. So very well done. It's an awesome tool. Congrats.
Thanks a lot.
We look forward to getting an update in a year or two from you.
Cheers. No, it was a pleasure.
All right, let's move on. But yeah, definitely check out datafetcher.com and try it today. Okay, Camille, show us what you do on your Friday nights.
So basically what happened is I got bored, and there a few years back, I want to say this was peak COVID, I played D&D with my coworkers. We couldn't do it in person, so we did it all remote. And at the time when we played that session, I was the DM, meaning I was telling the story, basically. We did it the traditional way with no sort of like extra tools. And then recently I was thinking back on it and was like, I wonder if you could run like a point and click adventure kind of game in Airtable. And I used the same sort of prompt that I did for that one D&D game as like my test use case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to summarize a lot of the text on the screen, because this is like the real prompt that I gave my players at the time. And then I'll show you how it works and then how it works underneath. So basically, there's a concept of a module, or basically the story that you're going to be telling. And every story starts with an opener. So in this case, my opening prompt, and I'll get into what a prompt is later, but in this case, you're on a pirate ship. Everyone on the ship is a pirate. The first mate comes to you. His name is Alexander, and he says, pretty sure there's something wrong with the captain. He tells you all these things about why he doesn't think the captain should be trusted. And now you're presented with a choice. In this case, you have three choices. You can side with Alexander. Yeah, I think the captain's being shady. You could be non-committal, just, don't involve me. Or you can side with the captain if you're loyal. And, in D&D, you would ask your players, hey, what do you want to do? They'd come to a conclusion, and then they'd tell you what it is that they're going to do. So translating this into Airtable, I have a record. I have some potential options that you could choose based on the current record. In this case, Alexander comes to you and blah, 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 blah. And then you make a decision. So in this case, I'm going to say I'm going to be non-committal. I'll play it straight down the middle. So Airtable is going to do a little bit of thinking. It's going to log my decision in a game log, which is completely unnecessary, but I think it's nice to have. And so now that I've made a decision, I have a new prompt. So Alexander says, you know what? I suppose you're right. We mustn't be too hasty. So he goes off to his room, and you see light emanating from his window. Now what do? You now think that this guy is going to go against the captain. So your options are now, you can attempt to escape the ship. Something's going on here. I don't want to be here for it. You can investigate the ship for clues. Is Alexander lying? You don't know. You could ambush Alexander, or you can ambush the captain. So now you have all of these different options that you can pick based on the first option that you chose. And then you can keep going. Let's just say I'm going to ambush the captain. I trust Alexander, but I want to take the gold for myself or whatever. I'll take care of the captain on my own. You make that decision, Airtable's going to think for a little bit, log that decision, and now you have a new prompt. This is at the point where I stopped writing a story because I don't remember what I did 4 years ago for the actual game that I ran. But each of those prompts had a different potential outcome. Basically, to summarize, if you're watching this back later, you'll read what it says. Basically, is like there's something really is up with the captain, and depending on how well you roll, the more stuff you can notice, and that would affect the different choices that you could present to your group. That's all well and good, but how does it work? If I look at the data, there's actually only one automation in this base that gets it to work. And a fairly simple data structure. You can see I only have 5 tables. The first one is a table of games. In this case, I mean, I'm probably only going to have one active game at a time. In this case, it's the game that I'm playing. And then you have a concept of modules. Again, in this case, a module is the story. It's a collection of prompts if you're thinking of it in Airtable sense. So for whatever game I'm currently playing, who's playing, if I wanted to have the interfaces filtered to say, only show me my games. And then you would have this concept of what is your current prompt. That brings us to what a prompt is. A prompt is just like a short description and a long description. You could be as flowery as you want. Which module does it belong to? Under which game is it currently active? And then there's catalysts and potential choices. So the first prompt doesn't have a catalyst. You just start a game. So that's why it's blank. But all of the other prompts, you're only going to get a certain prompt if you made a specific choice. So then we get into choices. And choices work the same way as prompts effectively. They're just a description. Here's a thing you can do. And you will only be presented with this choice if you're on a specific prompt. And if I say, I'm going to be non-committal, which is the choice I made, then the next prompt that triggers is Alexander gives you the night to sleep on it. If I instead said, I want to side with the captain, Alexander casts a spell on you because, hey, he's trying to take care of the captain now. So the prompt changes based on whatever choice you make. And then getting that all to work is a really, really simple automation, which is why this is really only a proof of concept. You can get as fancy as you want with it, but in order to get that to work, on the games table, which is the game I'm actively running, I have a current prompt. And whenever I make a choice by just selecting it from the dropdown, this automation is watching for a choice being selected. It's going to create a new log in my game log, which does nothing, but it's nice to see the history of first I did this and then I did that. That's just linking it to the game that I'm currently playing and then logging whatever choice I selected. And then the next thing is I'm clearing out my current choice for that game so that I can choose something else. But I'm pulling in whatever that choice's next prompt is as my current prompt. So I made a choice. It's supposed to trigger this new event. That new event is my current prompt. And then the last thing that I'll say, the linked choices, there's using a relatively new feature for Airtable for linked record fields, allowing a filter based on a certain condition. So I only want to be able to choose certain choices if they belong to the current prompt. So I have a total of 11 choices, but only the ones that are possible based on my current prompt should be selectable. That's it.
I love that. So cool.
It wasn't that hard. It's annoying to set up because I have a script just interface where here are all of my prompts and here are the potential choices. So it's a lot of back and forth of you create a prompt and then you create a choices and then you create prompts for those choices. After once I make this, then I do that. it's annoying to set up, but to play, it actually runs pretty smoothly as long as you basically write an entire story ahead of time.
It's very elegant. I thought it was going to be like a big unwieldy script in the automation, but it was just a nice little update record. It's very cool.
I was very surprised I was able to do it with no automations. Now you would not no automations, no scripted automations. I will say it does require you to be, I think, at least on the team plan, even though there's no script. This feature is a premium thing, so you can't do it on a free plan. But this is a sort of a nice to have. It's not truly required for it to work. It's just required for it to work well, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Could you use, and I'm wondering, when you had originally kind of set something up, I think you mentioned you set this up maybe before that feature was available.
I didn't use Airtable at all. I just sort of had a bunch of notes in a notebook, which is, how you normally do it. I wouldn't build a database for every campaign I run, although I could.
You could, but I wonder, could you just use a filtered view based on the current prompt? Like if you don't have that feature, if you only have the free plan, you could probably just somehow set up a view with just those choices on it, depending on what you've chosen for the current prompt.
You probably could, and there's some variables that would get in your way of using this feature here, limit selection to a view rather than selection by a condition. Mm-hmm. If you are like multiple people running multiple games at one time, then you're going to run into an issue. Right. But unless you're a professional DM, you're not going to have like 5 different D&D sessions running where that would be a problem. So you could probably get away with just using a filtered view.
Yeah.
Okay. Could you, using Data Fetcher, of course, connect it to OpenAI and build your prompts as you go for any unknown prompts?
I feel like you could, because like you want to have a good, no matter which path you take, you don't want your story to end in like 3 turns unless you do something really stupid. Like just you clearly do something that would get you killed or something. So if you can't think of new like prompts to get out of this situation, you could use something like ChatGPT or OpenAI to be like, all right, well, it already works in the form of what AI wants, right? Here's a prompt.
Right.
Write something for me.
Yeah. That'd be cool. I mean, you could build it as you go.
Sorry, is it possible to finish it, to complete it? I don't know enough about Dungeons.
I didn't build in like a concept of a game over necessarily. What happens is there's no choices for this where I ended up, because at this point I gave up writing. This is just a proof of concept. But like, I'm sure I could build in something else that's like, if there are no potential choices, treat it as a game over and have the interface display like a group that's previously hidden that says game over or something. But like, there's maybe another concept of endings, because you might have a good ending, you might have a bad ending, and you might want to describe that in the same way you're describing all your prompts. So yeah, there's a lot more you could do with this to make it feel like the players are playing a game. Right now, I'm assuming I'm the only one who sees this.
Yeah. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that, Camille. That's fun. Game night. Okay, quick shout out. If you're not in the BuiltOnAir community, join us, builtonair.com/join. We'll get you in a Slack community of thousands of Airtable users and fans and people talking about it daily, as well as our newsletter and our YouTube channel. Lots of ways to engage with us. So join us at builtonair.com. All right, Ellie, walk us through your tricks.
All right. So this is something I do pretty often when I'm starting a new base. Maybe I've got data that I've pulled from some other source that I'm moving into Airtable. And this could be, for a million different reasons. But ultimately, I've got a bunch of fake data here that I pulled from an app called Mockaroo online, which I really like. It's pretty cool. It lets you generate lots of fake data. But so I've got a table of people and a table of interactions, but this data is not tied together at all. And I ultimately want to be able to link up my interactions to my people records. But a couple issues come into play where I don't have, I need to add that linked record field, and I need to find which person each one of these records relates to. And this will work as long as you have one field on both tables that has some sort of intersection, right? So in this case, I've got email address, which theoretically I've got a list of unique emails here. And then on the interactions table, I've got a list of emails that are not unique and that appear in my list of people. And this could be record IDs. It could be any kind of identifier. Maybe you use like HubSpot or any sort of thing. As long as you've got something that matches on the two tables, this trick is going to work. So the first thing I usually do is I create a formula field. And I'm going to actually add the lower and the trim function to my email address field here. To guarantee that everything is in the same casing and I don't have any extra spaces on the front or the back of that email address, because I want to strip it down and make it as simple as possible so I can find the matches on my people table. So I'm just going to go ahead and create that field. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the people table. This is taking forever. Come on.
Airtable's simplest formula. And it's
what is going on? I'm like, is Airtable going down? Oh no. Okay. There we go. All right. Now I'm just going to repeat the same thing over here. We'll say, and I don't even need to give it a name because I'm going to delete this field also eventually. So now what I do is I actually take that formula field and I'm going to configure it, edit the field configuration, and change it from a formula to link it to a new table. And I'm just going to call this like temp VLOOKUP. And now I'll have this new table with just the unique email addresses from my people table. And I'm going to repeat the same thing on the interactions table and take that formula field and link it also to that temp VLOOKUP table. And what I end up with on this side is all the matches. So I know this email address relates to this person record, and there are 2 interaction records underneath that email address. Now to tie it all together, I'm going to go to my people table and I'm going to add a record ID function. Oops. So I have the unique ID that Airtable has assigned to each person on this table. And on my temp VLOOKUP table, I'm just going to look up that record ID from the person. So now I've got my people record ID here. On my interactions table, I can now look up from the link to the VLOOKUP table the record ID of the person. And now I can just take that lookup of the record ID, rename it to person, and now link it directly to my people table.
Genius.
And there you go. And now I've got the exact matches. Everything should line up. There might be some that are empty, and then you'll be able to know like, oh, I actually don't have that email address on the people table. And then I could go ahead and just delete all my extra calculation fields. But I use a version of that process like every time I'm importing data and I need to make sure that I'm lining things up appropriately. there's all sorts of weird little things that can happen. If you like, say I just took maybe my primary ID on the people table was that email field. If I just changed this linked record, change this email address field on the interactions table to link directly to people, that can cause all sorts of like problems. If you've got like casing different, like if there's a capital A versus a lowercase a, that would create a new record on the people table when it really should be linked to an existing one. Even an extra space can do that. So it's I find it very beneficial to create this like temporary intersecting table to be able to find where those matches are.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great trick.
Excellent. Yeah, I haven't opened Excel, I think, in years. I basically only use Airtable to even to do VLOOKUPs. That's how I do it, is I find the matching field and get it all merged onto one table.
Yep. Great. Thank you, Ellie, for showing that.
Absolutely.
It's a great trick. So it comes in handy. Awesome. That concludes today's episode. Thank you for being with us, and we will see you next week. And Andy, thank you for joining. Good luck with everything in the future.
Thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure. Cheers, guys.
Yeah. We'll see you all next week.
See ya.